life cycles part, not too important, but and we can't even ignore it. If you see somewhere that requirement of being life cycles, you should be able to use that. If you have servlets idea, servlets also have the similar concept, servlet life cycles. Easily you could able to understand it. If you don't know also, still it is fine. So generally till now, what is the life cycle of any bean? Till now, what is the life cycle of any bean? If you write in general, if you write your controller classes, service classes, your DAO classes, and the POSO classes or DTD objects or entity objects, connection pool objects. We have so many types of classes that we write in application. Okay, uh, DTO objects, data transfer objects, DTOs. The main purpose of these DTOs are whichever data coming from the front end, right? Let's say if it is a simple form, name, email address, this form data when user submits, we pass this data into DTO. We will be creating one, let's say if it is a student form, for the student form equivalent DTO object we will create, like a simple poser class, simple DTO class. So this DTO lifecycle is once you submit data here to here, that this object will be created. Basically, we never deal with them directly. We never configure it with any stereotype annotation, or we never use it like a bean. Automatically, your container will create this DTO object, and this DTO object it will pass to your controller class, either post method or put method controller. So the DTO will given to controller. From here, we will send that DTO to service. Then service, yeah, data transfer object. To transfer data from front end to back end, we will use it. In MVC, yeah, name it anything. This is a data transfer object to transfer data which is coming from front end, right? We will send it to controller. In servlets, we don't have any such concepts. We used to read data from request object, request dot get name, get email, get address. We read manually. As Spring is very advanced, right? It will automatically populate your front end data into DTOs. It's a simple poser class. DTO is nothing but simple poser class. With name, email, address, if I ask you to create a poser, how you will create class student with the string name, string email, string address with setters, getters you create, right? Something like that. That is your poser. So what it will do, front end data directly populates into DTO. That DTO will be given to controller. From controller, we will send it to service. In service, we write all the business operation, business logics by reading data from DTO. Thereafter, we send that data to DAO. In which form we will send it to DAO? We will be having entity, right? In ORM, we used to have entity. From this DTO to entity, we will exchange the data here. DTO to entity, we will transfer data here. DTO to entity. From one object to another object, we will shift it. Means converting from DTO object to entity object. So DTO to entity object conversion we do here. Then entity object only we send it to this entity object only we send it to DAO. So DAO directly will persist your entity into database table. Finally, it will persist your entity into DB table. This entity will get inserted into database table directly. the entity will get inserted. From front end, you will get data in the form of DTO. End of the day to back end, it will go in the form of entity. The remaining all classes are like helper classes. Controller will help to send to read this DTO, and from here controller will send it to service. Service will do all business logics here, and it will convert that DTO into entity, and it will send it to DAO. DAO finally saves the data. And let's say here you may have something connection pool classes. This connection pool class during application execution only it will execute. Okay. Now coming to life cycle we are talking about, right? So this DTO life cycle is means its life. This object life is once user pass data into it, this object will it will send controller will read this data and it will send to service, then it goes to DTO, then save operation will happen, and same way the response will come back. Once you got the response back from service, right? Service again it will give data in the form of DTO only. Inside same DTO it will persist data and it will give it to the front end. So once front end receives the data, this DTO object lifecycle is end. This DTO lifecycle starts from the front end. Once front end receives the response from controller, this DTO's lifecycle is done. The object itself will be destroyed. The DTO object is destroyed. It is no more. The object will be created during the request submission, and this object is destroyed after receiving the data. After front end receiving the data, right, this object will be removed from your JVM. So that is the life cycle of this DTO. And what about the controller service DAO's life cycle? This objects will be there for entire life. Only one object. We understand, right? Singleton objects only. All these objects are singleton objects only. During your application deployment time only, these objects will be created. Controller, service, DAO, and your connection pool objects. And entity also similar like DTO. Once I received the request to service will create object of this entity and it will save it into table. Once after saving it into table, this entity also destroyed. Entity lifecycle and DTO lifecycle is only for user scope. Once user submits data, DTO object will be created. Once the DTO data submitted to service, entity object will be created. Once entity saved into table, entity will be destroyed. Then once the response sent back to the UI, DTO also destroyed. And all these objects therefore remaining there for entire life. These all objects are singleton objects. Controller, service, DAOs, connection pools, all these objects are singleton objects. And these objects are prototype. DTO objects, entity objects are prototype. Only for user request that objects will be created and then destroyed. These all are the prototype objects. Now what about this bean life cycles? Whichever objects are singleton, right? Whichever objects are singleton here, for this objects, if you want to have any extra logic during object creation, if you want to write some initialization logic, or when you try to shut down it, if you want to write any cleanup kind of logics, which means I have a connection pool class. In this connection pool class, connections I want to bring into this class during this object creation. While connection pool class configuration class, right? This is connection pool configuration class. While this connection pool configuration class object creation, I want to execute one more method. Object will be created by default with your IOC container. IOC container will scan this class and it will create object. As soon as this object is created, by default, I want to execute one method to get the connections of database. And when I try to shut down my application, all singleton objects will be destroyed. When you up your application, all singleton objects will be created. When you down your application, all singleton objects will be destroyed. So during destroying of your object, during before destroying of my object, whatever connections I have in this connection pool class, I want to return it back to database. I want to say to database, please take all these connections back. Again I will come back to take the connections. Till then, consider that I am giving you all connections back. I want to say to database, my job is done, take back all the connections during shutdown of my application. So if you want to have any such methods in the application, you can use this bean life cycles, which means your bean usually will have what? Any bean, either controller or service or any POSO class, right? Your POSO class usually have all the variable dependencies you have, or all the dependency variables you have here in the class level, and you will be having setters or constructors, or you may inject the dependency variables via annotation with auto wired. So this is simple POSO class. This class object will be created and dependencies also will be supplied here via setter or constructor. Apart from it, after object creation and after object creation and dependency injection, I want to execute some logic without user intervention. Using container only, I want to execute one method. Till now, we didn't see any methods execution. We see only how to create objects, and we see only how to inject the objects via setters or constructors or via annotations. We understand how to create objects and how to inject it. Now, container is having one more capability. If there are any configuration methods in your application, that configuration methods also it can execute. Yesterday we see configuration class with @bean. That is a simple bean. Now, if you have any configuration methods inside your bean, any bean, my configuration methods requirement is what? During after object creation, I want to do some initialization logics, or during object cleanup, I want to do cleanup operations. Along with these two methods it can call. Extra stuff what IOC container can do is, after object creation, IOC can automatically call init method. Let's talk about this init method only. From where this init method will come? Till now we didn't see that init method. After object creation, automatically it will call it. You have this capability. What you do with this method? If you have any initialization logics, you can declare them in this. Any initializations if you want to do before executing the end user methods. End user is coming here to call post method, or end user is coming here to call get method, or end user is coming here to call put method of my controller, and all the dependencies I injected with auto void or setter or constructors. What is the requirement of init method for me here then? A method which is called by container. What is the need of this method? Is there any purpose to any class that I should have a method which is called by container by default. Whatever methods I need for end user, I have that methods. Post or get or put methods I have in my controller. And whatever dependencies I have, that dependencies also I have here. Next, if it wants to call service dependencies, yeah, it's one kind, but nowadays we are not even using init method for database connections. We are using it in a different way. If you ask me, nothing much we use this in it, but yeah, you can assume that as an example. Database connection generally we will not get it into controller, but before this post get put, something I am not auto wiring or something I didn't auto wired it, still I need some initialization required here. During implementation of my class, I realized I need one object here. User is sending some data in the form of JSON. From front end I am getting in the form of JSON. From front end I am getting data in the form of JSON to my post method. Some string I am getting JSON string. So from this JSON string to I want to convert it into object. I am getting a string here, JSON string. From JSON to I want to convert into an object. So for that purpose, JSON to object conversion, for this purpose only, for my get method, put method, I want to use JSON library. So I need JSON object here, JSON object here, and here. Three JSON objects I need. So throughout my post method, get method, put method, three JSON objects I need. So JSON object is required for post method, get method, and put method. So as these three methods are required that JSON object, instead of creating three objects, you may create that object via your init method. You may create it via your init method. Put the JSON declaration here in the class instance level, JSON object G, and this is not auto wired. Every object need not to auto wire from your Spring container. Instantly you may need something. I brought everything from IOC. Few things as a developer I wanted to create objects for my methods. In case if you want to do that, everywhere for post get put I need JSON object. Instead of creating JSON object three times here and again that JSON object will be created for every request from the UI. If I create object inside post get put, if these three methods execute for 1 lakh times, 1 lakh times your JSON object will be created. So I don't want to do that. And even I don't want to create this JSON as a bean and inject here. Instantly I want to create it for my only this particular controller class. So what I do, inside init method, if I do that, G reference G equal to new JSON, this object will be created via your init method. Who will execute this init method? Your IOC container will execute. How your IOC container will create your controller object and how it will pass dependencies here. Same way it will call your init method also. While starting your application only. JSON object also created. So wherever you need that JSON object in post method or get method, use this JSON method. JSON dot from or convert. There are many methods, right? From you may convert from your JSON string to object. All that operations you may write here. From where you got this JSON object, you have not even auto wired. You didn't auto wire it, but you created it via init method. Who executed this init method? Are you executing as a developer? No. After object creation of your contain, your POSO class, either it is your controller or service DAO. After object creation, what it will do, it will pass all the mandatory dependencies. Once after dependencies, if it see any init method in your class, this init method also it will execute. This init method also it will execute. And in this init method, whatever objects or whatever references or whatever common things you have for your methods, right? For all multiple methods, I need some common object initialization. You do that common object initialization here and you can utilize it here. Okay, JSON object is created, I used it fully. And this JSON object is created during init method execution, and who executed that? IOC executed. Okay, now everything is fine. JSON object is created, I utilized it. Now when I shut down my application, IOC container will take care of the dependencies which are injected, right? It will kill all that dependencies. Means once you shut down your application, right? Once you shut down your application, whatever objects you have created, okay. So once you shut down your application, whatever objects it created, right? Singleton objects, all singleton objects will be destroyed. In JVM, let's say you have 100 classes objects created during your application deployment, right? All that 100 objects it will maintain for lifetime, and it will clean up only at the time of your application shutdown. Prototype objects every day will, you know, born and die. For every user request, they will born and they will die. These entities and DTOs. But your controllers and service DAOs are there for entire life cycles in the JVM. Life cycle in the sense, from your application startup to application shutdown, these classes will be remaining same. These objects will be remaining same in your JVM. Only one object will be created and they will never get cleared. So if it is such a type class which is having init method, my class object is destroyed and all the dependencies also destroyed. And what about init method declarations? As a developer, I did so many declarations inside init method. Who will destroy them? You should. As a developer, you initialized them, you should destroy them. Where should I destroy? During object creation, this init method is executing by IOC. Similarly, during your object destruction or during your object killing, right? While it destroying your POSO class, while it is destroying your POSO class, right? While it is destroying this POSO class, you can have one more method here, destroy. In your POSO class, you can have one more method called destroy. This method also IOC container will call. IOC can call what it can do after object creation and after dependency injection. IOC can automatically call init method, and during shutdown and before before your objects, before your singleton objects cleaning from JVM, it will call destroy methods. It will call destroy methods. Sorry. Hmm. Hmm. How you say that everything is clear? That's not true statement. Everything not clear. Hmm. No. Uh, See. from a main method. Okay, let me say simple core Java example. I have a test class here, and I have a student class here, and I have an address class here. Okay, into student class address dependency I have. So set address method I have. And get address also I have. City something I have with setter and getter. So I have address object. Into this address I have address dot set city HYD I have, and this address I am assigning to student set address. So let's say if you create this object student object with IOC container, IOC container will kill the student object automatically during your application shutdown. Okay, and if you create this object manually, this object it will not destroy. Because IOC doesn't know that whether it need to clean up that object or not. Of course, JVM automatically will clean, but it will take some time. JVM immediately it will not do any garbage collection. See, even if I execute this code also, immediately address and student objects it will not destroy. It will not clean up them. You need to call. You need to set AD equal to null. Explicitly, you need to say, I'm done. Then it will nullify them. It will clean from JVM. Or else it will clean whenever it gets free time. Or whenever its trigger is executed, it will do the cleanup. Until unless you say, additionally, make it null, it won't clean them. Yeah, whichever is objects. Yeah, we need to clean. So whatever objects you have configured with stereotypes, controller, service, DAOs, configurations, at the rate beans, everything it will clean. Everything it will clean up. But whatever initializations you have done inside init method, this is your initialization, and it's your responsibility to clean up. Let's say in real, if you create 10 connections from database here, in inside init method, if you do the connection, if you procuring connections from a database, when you shut down your application, of course your poso class will be destroyed, and whatever logic you have here, everything will be destroyed. But whatever connections you have procured from the database, right, that connections it will not give it back to database, because you never say explicitly close all the connections. So database is a third party application. What it believes that okay, still your application is running, you need all that connections. It will reserve for you. It won't do any cleanup. It continuously wait why. Hmm, yes, yes. Because database is a additional third party, it doesn't know about it. You need to inform that okay, I'm done. My application is getting shut down. Please take connections. Again, when I restart, I'll take it back. Once in a lifetime. Yes. Yeah. In class instance level only. Here only you want to put that code. Okay, maybe you can do that line. Thereafter, if you want to set some configurations, g dot some set, can you able to call all the setter methods here? You can do that. Object, if you want to create, you can create it using new equal to new json. But additionally, some parameters I want to set. This json is having some special configurations. G dot set some property, something if I want to set. Yeah. No, no, you can do that. Yeah, you can do that. When you do something in class instance level, during object creation only that will be executed. Still you have one init method for doing like servlet's lifecycle init and destroy it. So here my JSON object is created. This object will never get destroyed. You should explicitly call it here g dot g equal to null, something like this. So this destroy method will be called at the time of shutdown your application. So explicitly your IOC container will call it. Before cleaning up your poser class, it will clean up your destroy method. It will call your destroy method. So whatever cleanup operations you have here, it will execute the cleanup operations. Let's say inside init method, if I create 10 connections, if I borrow 10 connections from database, all the 10 connections you need to give it back from destroy method. If you procure Kafka connection from Kafka, so you need to return it back from destroy method. So that the third parties will understand that, okay, he got the connection when the application started and he is returning it back because his application might get shut down. So then whenever I restart my application, freshly it will give again new connections to us. Okay, once in a lifetime these methods will execute. Along with this object creation, init method will execute, and during your application shutdown, this destroy method will be executed. Okay. So we have many approaches to configure this init and destroy methods. Programmatically, XML approach, annotations we have. As annotations are very important, let's say annotation approach. I would recommend you to do all the examples. You have XML based here, okay? You have XML based and annotation based life cycles. Okay, spelling mistake. This is programmatic based XMLs and annotations. Do three examples, okay? 20, 21, 22. Here I'll show you annotations only because that is the thing that we are using nowadays. So life cycles. Uh, yeah, programmatic means no XML, even no annotation, just by pure Java. Just there are two interfaces, you need to implement them. So let's say I'll be writing here some db config class. Sorry, it's a package. Just to see the problem, also you will understand easily here. I'll create one connection pool db config class. In this class, I'll set all the connection properties, string the driver name, URL, username, password. And let me have setter methods here for all these properties. So now via setter methods, driver name, URL, username, password I wanted to pass. Or let's consider something student DAO. Now here I have one save method, public void save id string name string email. Yeah. So let me have this similar code there. So this connections and all, I don't want to do it here. I want to do it from init method. Okay. So yeah, the remaining logic is same. So here you can have init method, right? You can have any name here for your method. Public void init or initializations, any method name you can put here, or db initializations happening. So I'll put db init, and just on top of it put at the rate post construct. This is the annotation for init method. So here you can create your data source. Okay. So I'll be using Apache data source. Apache, it is basic data source. I got it. So now I'll be creating basic data source object, basic Apache basic data source. So you need that connection pool dependency. Build path, configure build path. Spring 3. So here I have Apache uh, connection pool jar also. Tomorrow we will discuss, okay, more in depth about connection pools. Just for life cycles purpose, I am creating the similar example. Okay. Apache basic data source is a connection pool class from Apache library. Basic data source BDS, new basic data source. So using this, I'll procure connections from my database. Okay, I have Arkill, right? Arkill homepage. So I have Arkill database. From this Arkill database, I'll procure connections, maximum number of connections. Usually during installation, it will tell you 15 max connections I can able to provide you. So let's say if I have 15 maximum connections only, I can get all that 15 connections into my connection pool. How I can get basic data source dot set a driver class name. Already driver class name we are passing through setter method. Set URL set username, set password. Then BDS dot how many maximum connections you want. Set max active connections. How many you want? It's a 15. BDS dot set minimum ideal connections 5. If nobody is using, at least 5 should be in ideal state. Like that, I give a correction pool count. Okay. And using this BDS object, what I can do, BDS dot get connection, open connection. Okay, this should be available in instance level. BDS dot get connection, and using this connection you can create statement and execute it. So just to show this exception. So now from this BDS getting one connection and using it. Or else write this way. So once you've done, when you call connection dot close, you are returning it back to connection pool. So others, whoever in queue, right, they will utilize the same connection. Connection dot close will not close your connection from the database. Just it will return back to your connection pool only. Okay. So here I have init method, but I don't have destroy method. If I use this class, if I configure this class in XML file and if I use it, what will happen? Just I'll be configuring it manually. Time being, later we'll see with full annotations. SDAO class name beans dot student DAO. This is having 4 properties: driver, URL, username, password. Pass them here. Okay. So all the connection related properties are set. So step by step you will understand here. First what it will do, your DO object will be created. I was a container, that is what it will do, right? First object will be created. Step 1, object created. Immediately what it will do as a step 2, it will call your setter methods. Step 2, setter. In second step, It will call all the setter methods, and it will inject these values. And next, it will call this set init method automatically. Init method. This init method will get executed. And whenever user calls, save method will execute, obviously. User calling, save method, and user will call. Sorry, post construct. This is for init method, post construct. So load your Spring XML file here and get your student object. Called DAO dot save method. So some record I am inserting here. So go to table and see what records you have. I have already 3 records. Now when I run it step by step, see how IOC will executes it. Step 1, object created. Step 2, all your setter methods executed. Step 3, your init method executed. And step 4, user calling the save method. He is worrying about MySQL driver and not at all using it. Huh? So see it. There is a MySQL driver. Cannot create pool connections factory. Network adapter could not establish the connection. IO exception. It is saying unable to create connections pool, or via this init method got executed while calling save only it is getting problem. Right, sir? Your init method also executed as expected. So here we given driver class name, URL, username, password, maximum active and minimum idle connections. This is also good. And driver class name and database URL, username, password also correct. Yeah, not correct. Yeah. So then how pool of connections created? Connections not created. Yeah, now success. It went success. How many connections I created? 15 connections via connection pool. So Alekia also inserted. Okay, four times inserted. Four. Two times inserted. Now again let me run it. Again successful. One more time. Success one more time. Again. It's getting saved every time. Many records created. How to set connections found in limiting. Actually, there is a command that I have used to set something unable to recollect. I increased it to 500 connections. So that's why you are not seeing any delay. Um, Connections limiting kill and G. Something maximum connections. Because I want to show you the problem actually by limiting it to very few connections. I intentionally increased it. Forget the command. Earlier it used to give 15 connections only. By able to see it in history at least. No, maybe just time being understand that it is not cleaning up connections. Okay, init method is procuring 15 connections and it is executing, that is fine. But whatever connections it procured properly, it is not returning back to your database. That is not happening. As I have maximum 300 connections, your code is running. If I have that 15 connections only, you definitely see error here. Because in this DO class, init method is executed. Your init method is continuously executing and creating maximum 15 connections. Okay, but you are not returning it back to database because the cleanup logic for this init not implemented. You did not implemented it. So this is very bad way of creating connection code. So after utilizing it while your system shut down, you should clean up them. Like a init method, you need to have a cleanup method also. db cleanup. You need to properly clean up it. So for cleanup operations, we use pre-destroy annotation. So here you need to do bds dot close. When you call bds dot close, it will properly return all the connections back. This destroy method will give all the connections back. So this will execute when during your application shutdown. Connection pool of connections. I didn't get you. Hmm. Yes. Connection pool. Yeah. Database connection pool. From database, I have 15 connections I reserved. Okay. When 15 users hit my application, when 15 users hit at a time, as 15 connections are available to do parallelly 15 database operations, for that first 15 users, it will give 15 parallel connections. They can execute their scripts. If a 16th user comes into the line, okay, I have only 15 maximum buffer. I have 15 came, so for 15 I given this. If a 16th user comes at the same time, what connection pool will do? Generally, if you don't have connection pool, database will give 15 connections to for first 15 members. For the 16th member, it will say no available connection error if you don't have connection pool. If you have connection pool, what connection pool will do? For first 15 users, it will give connections. For the 16th users, for the 16th user, it will make him wait at least for next 1 2 seconds. Then if somebody returned connection within that given time, the same connection again it will return to 16th user. Out of 15, it will one connection it will fetch. So now let's say you are the first user, you fetched the connection. So the remaining connections count is 14. Along with you, I also tried for insert. So two members came in, so the remaining connections are 13. So let's say if we all invoked, as we have 15 members, 15 connections are utilized. One more person if come in, there is no more connection here. 15 are but 15 are in use. So meanwhile my statement is executed. So one connection will be returned back. So the utilized connections are 14 only. So now 16th user comes in, for him the 15th connection is available. So for him it will give the 15th connection. So more about connection pools we will talk tomorrow. Just try to understand the cleanup operations. Yeah, till now I didn't do any cleanup operations. So whatever 15, 15, 15 connections it procured, right? It is not given to database properly. So we executed it for almost 20 times. 20 into 15 it procured. Means almost 250 connections. More than 250, right? 450 connections it procured and not properly given back. As it is reserving them, it is its responsibility to give it back. So it's your responsibility to call close method also. During shutdown of your application, it will be properly closed. Now if I run it, once after execution of this success statement, your destroy method also will be called. So it will do properly cleanup operations. Where is destroy method? Init method is called, destroy not called. To call destroy explicitly, what do we do? Application dot we call close method or shutdown method, here instead of using this class application context, right, we'll use configurable application context. Configurable, in real time, configurable application context is one type of web application context that will be called close method. When close method called, right, all shutdown hooks will be executed. All shutdown hooks means your destroy methods will be executed. Finally, finally not in it. Finally, it's a destroy method. Finally, your destroy method will be executed. Object created, setters executed, and your init method executed by container. User calling save method and user operation success. So this will happen for entire life cycle. Today it started till line number till step 3, right, it will execute it during your application startup. Let's say this application started today, these 3 steps will be executed. From today onwards, user can start registration. This will be executed till when? Until you shut down your application. For next to 10 days, if I open this, for next to 10 days, users, any number of users can call and their data will be inserted. On 10th day, when I shut down my application, this logic will execute. The destroy method will be executed on 10th day only, when I shut down my application. This logic will be executed. This logic will ensure to call all your beans destroy methods. It will call all destroy methods, and if there are any cleanup operations required, it will do cleanup. So properly your application is started and properly your application is destroyed. So no objects you reserved with you. Okay? Yeah. So about connection pools we'll discuss tomorrow, but this is what the lifecycle methods will do. In very rare cases, you people will use them. Okay? But in case if you have any such requirement for doing initializations and cleanup operations, use post construct. If you see post construct, definitely you should have a pre-destroy method. If you do something initialized, you should definitely destroy it. Okay? And we'll talk about this connection pool tomorrow. Are you guys clear about init and destroy? Yeah. I tried my best to make you understand this. Still, if you didn't get it, it's okay. Leave it. We will do servlets discussion, right? There again, I'll show you how servlets life cycles used to execute, and I'll try to cover a few more examples there. Okay. But yeah, you may give less priority. But if you have any requirement, this is the way that you can use post construct for init and pre destroy for destroy operations. Hmm. MVC. Spring MVC will be finished. Spring Boot and microservices will start. You can expect 20 more sessions. Okay, 20 more sessions to cover Spring Boot and microservices. Now you understand the core concept of Spring. Apart from Spring, as you understand the core concepts, remaining concepts easily you can digest. Except AOP. AOP, you know, it will do miracles. So to believe that, you will take some time. But the remaining all concepts, Spring Boot, microservices, are simple. And AOP also, I'll make it very simple to you people understand. Okay. Otherwise, JDBC, ORM, MVC, Spring Boot, microservices, all are simple concepts only. Each concept will have a purpose. You need to remember that purpose, and we should see how that we can able to solve. That's it. Okay. Yeah.